And we're live.
Hello and welcome to the CLE chat group. Today is Saturday of June 10th of 2017, and we're going to read some news articles and have a discussion about them as a group. But first, I'll introduce you. My name is Joshua. I live in Southern California. With us today, we have Jeannie from Australia, Steve from Oklahoma, Tanya from Indiana. Also from Indiana, we have Christopher, who started Creation Liberty Evangelism, and everyone I just mentioned is a part of that online church. Now, although these video discussions are for members only, you can still watch, use a live chat. You can even click the share button below this video to invite your friends and family to listen with us live. And if you're watching recording this and would enjoy watching it live and chatting with live listeners, subscribe, click the bell, and you should get notifications when we go live. So our first report is a report from Christianity Today. I messed that up. Our first report is from the Christian Post, titled "Muslims Outraged as Indiana Billboard Calls Muhammad a Rapist Who Married a 6-year-old Beheaded Jews." Says Muslims in Indianapolis, Indiana, have spoken out against an anti-Muslim billboard that calls the Islamic prophet Muhammad a rapist and slave owner who beheaded over 600 Jews in one day and married a 6-year-old daughter. Now, the article doesn't say this, but the article does have a picture of the billboard. And on the billboard, you can see that it also mentions him having tortured and killed unbelievers and having 13 wives and 11 at one time. As Fox 59 reported on Monday, the billboard, which went up on the southbound lanes of I-465 near the Washington Street exit, does not mention Muhammad by name, but lists several attributes.
Can I say something real quick? I know Tanya's laughing and I'm smiling because we know exactly where this is at. Like, I don't think we've been up there to see it, but we know exactly the location you're talking about. Because this is like, what, that's like a 40-minute drive up north.
And it continues. It does not mention him by name, but lists several attributes of a so-called perfect man, which are often points of contention laid out by critics of Islam. These are completely false statements. Rima Shahid, executive director of the Muslim Alliance of Indiana, told NBC News on Tuesday. I'd really like people to read about the 7 points that are mentioned on the billboard because you'll find that none of them are true, she contested. It's a cowardly act because they...
I wanted my laugh to be on the recording. Go ahead.
All right. It's a cowardly act because they didn't put a name on the billboard, even though they must have gone through a lot of effort and resources to put it up.
Muhammad slayed hundreds of Jews. He married a 9-year-old who he was having sex with. My name is Christopher Johnson, and I approve of this message.
This is the Shahid said that she is outraged and shocked that this would go up in our city. This is the first time hate speech like this has appeared. We didn't think these type of beliefs existed in Indianapolis, and now it's in the heart of our city, she continued. Indy Star reported that the...
Wait, I hope that quotation comes back around. That when Indianapolis finally gets one of these Muslim bombings like they had in Chicago, as soon as that happens in Indianapolis, I hope they will repeat that quote. Can you read that one more time for me with that context? Just read it one more time.
Yeah. Shahid said that she is outraged and shocked that this would go up in our city. This is the first time hate speech like this has appeared. We didn't think these type of beliefs existed in Indianapolis, and now it's in the heart of our city, she continued.
That's my point. As soon as one of those Muslim bombings happens in Indianapolis, I hope somebody will come back to that quote and use it.
Indy Star reported that the billboard was put up on a Virginia-based outdoor advertising seller, which has a history of controversial statements about Islam. Don Woodsmall of a firm called Light Point Impressions was identified as the man who sold the ad to a group of patriotic Americans who said who he said were denied advertising by national companies. Their desire, born out of
Yeah,
love.
I'm a little stunned that they were able to get a billboard company to allow that to go up. Not sure who they were working with to do that. Who is the organization you said got that up there, or did they say?
A firm called Light Point Impressions.
So that's not that's a business, or is that like a church, a weird church of some sort? Because Light Point Impressions, that's a little cultic in phrasing.
Well, yeah. Well, it says Don Woodsmall of a firm called Light Point Impressions was identified as the man who sold the ad to a group of patriotic Americans.
Sold the ad.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
That's why they're naming it that.
No, let's start over, because there multiple of us were talking. Let's start one at a time. Tiny, what were you saying? Start over.
I was just saying that they own the billboard, so they sold the ad to the organization that put it up. But
right, selling the ad, though, the question is, who made the ad? See, selling it doesn't necessarily mean creation of it.
Well, I mean, it sounds like that this firm is an advertising agency. That's what I would guess.
Well, once again, all these news articles do not provide us enough information for us to actually judge the matter. And you can tell that they're not really judging the matter either, because what you notice what they say this is this controversial information came up, not this truthful information came up, or these facts came up. It's controversial. We don't know what the truth is. We're just reporting it.
What's the name of the company again?
Light Point Impressions.
Light Point Impressions.
Were the ones that sold the ad to a group of patriotic Americans.
does it say, Joshua, if it's one of those digital billboards? Because they have several of them around 465 in Indianapolis. So I'm wondering if that's why they're named what they're named, because it's a digital billboard that changes. But for her to say this is the first time Indianapolis has displayed any kind of hate speech, I'm sorry, I don't buy that.
Well, it wasn't it didn't say in the article, as far as I know, about it being digital or not, but they provided a picture, and it wasn't digital from what I could tell. It didn't look digital at all.
Did the picture have like a Muslim man, with his head wrapped up and all that, and he's got like his the sandal of his shoe stuck in his mouth? Is that the picture that we're referring to? Well, if it's not the picture I'm referring to, then this whole thing is not accurate in the first place. So I don't know why we're arguing about it.
Light Point Impressions is a billboard advertising agency.
Yeah, so it doesn't actually say who created it. It didn't say that Light Point created it. It says they sold it. So the
Somebody buys an ad, they usually, if somebody buys an ad, they usually create their own.
Well, saying usually does not prove the point, or the light point, if you will. Steve, what do you want to say?
I'm pulling up something on his press forum. The guy's name is Don Woodsmall, and he's the one who sold the advertisement, or sold the.
Yeah, but that's exactly. Josh already said that. Like, he already pointed out the guy's name.
But he has a history of anti-Islamic rhetoric. He has a history in this article. He has a history of it behind us.
Okay, he has a history of doing this. Yes. So, okay, then he's probably the one who did create it. Okay, that's what I wanted to find out. Thanks.
And it says that he sold the ad to a group of patriotic Americans who were denied advertising by national companies. So the people who put this up were already denied, and he allowed to do it.
Yeah, Josh already said that too. I just wanted to make sure that it didn't specifically say that he created it, but we can deduce that based off his history, and that's what I wanted to point out. Okay, thank you.
Their desire, born out of love and not hate, is to launch a national conversation, Woodsmall reportedly said. He said he felt it was his duty as a patriotic American to accept the Perfect Man advertisement designed to inform the American public of the true root cause of the cascading violence that is epidemic to the systemic in Islam. Systemic in Islam. Chris Cope, who was listed on the now deleted Light Point Impressions website as a co-principal, said that he was parted ways with Woodsward. We owned some assets together, billboards, a number of years ago, Cope explained. We have parted ways relative to those assets many years ago. Pharaoh Khatri, the Islamic Society of Pharaoh Khatri of the Islamic Society of North America said that while they reported free speech, the billboard is also rooted in bigotry. Is also rooted in bigotry. Khatri argued that the ad is specifically meant to disparage the Muslim faith, and noted that the ads have also been put up in the New York and other cities.
All right, this is totally incorrect. Okay, because, well, I mean, I don't know if it's totally incorrect, but here's the problem we have. He's saying we want to take the ad down because it's bigotry. Notice he didn't say because it has no factual root. See how they're remaining completely neutral. Like everybody wants to be totally neutral in this, right? Because after all, if you're not neutral, you either have people jumping down your throat for being a Muslim supporter, or you have a bomb shoved down your throat for being anti-Muslim, right? So everybody's like, oh, we got to be neutral in all this. And they said, well, it's bigotry. And bigotry is defined as intolerance toward those who hold a different opinion. Okay, there's a big difference between intolerance and facts, okay? What happens is that typically with the the social justice warrior Smurfs, okay? Typically with them, if you present a fact, they say that is intolerance. Well, look, define intolerance. If I was not tolerating the social justice warriors, or let's say if America was not tolerating them, they would all be arrested and hanged and executed because we wouldn't tolerate them, or we would ship them out on ships to whatever country would take them, mostly the communists, because that's where they want to go. Even though the communists would reject them, just as they rejected the Madeleine Murray O'Hair, who is also, she says, I love communism. Communism is great. And then she tried to become a Russian citizen, and Russia said, you're too lazy, and if you come here, you will die because you will not work, and you have to work here or to eat. And it doesn't seem like you have a good work record, so goodbye. We're not taking you. Communist Russia rejected Madeleine Murray O'Hair, and so she went back to the United States to demand more. You know, give me more. So these social justice warriors first don't understand. If we didn't tolerate them, we just say, here's a one-way ticket to Russia, or here's a one-way ticket to Cuba on the condition that you use it and don't come back. So that's intolerance, okay? Facts are a whole different matter, and facts make people feel all weird inside. I understand. But you see how they're using these words? Well, it's controversial, and well, it's bigotry. Like they're just, you know, by posting this, they're not tolerating the Muslims. Oh, excuse me. I tolerate Catholics all the time, but the Catholic Church, the origins of it, are you kidding me? I mean, come on. It's like what they did is the way the story is supposed to go, that Constantine had all of his soldiers put that witchcraft, it's the witch doctor Ankh, right? Of like the Egyptians, which is like, it's kind of like the cross. It's got the loop in the top, you know. He puts that on all their shields. They win a battle, and he goes, oh, wow, there must be something to this Christianity thing. So, I mean, you get that, and then you get 600 years of torture and murder of many various people who disagree with the Catholic Church on anything and who would not recognize the authority of the Pope. So there you go. You see, I think I'm very tolerant of Catholics, considering of where their origins come from, and most of them don't even know where their church come from either. They just think, oh, it's here, and they claim to be of the Bible. Okay. Well, you see, the point is that, and I guess I'm not going to rattle on and on, but bigotry and facts are way two different things here. Now, if the Muslims want to say that's not true, let me show you the real history. That's not what they're doing, at least according to this news article. What the news article is doing is saying, we Muslims don't like this because that's not true. The end. Well, problem solved. I guess we can stop all investigation and just bring all Muslims into this country. I mean, who cares about actually researching anything? I mean, why would we do that?
Indianapolis resident Ali Khan said that the billboard has made him feel sick when driving by. You feel under attack when you see something like that. It's just so hateful to spread vicious lies about a religion, he commented. If someone is confused or has a problem with Islam,
let me. What was the guy's name again? I'm sorry. What was his name?
Ali Khan.
Mr. Khan, let me tell you this. When I drive by it, I get sick to my stomach too. The problem is the sickness is being caused by two different things. It's causing, well, actually, no, I take that back. It's being caused by the same thing. We're both looking at the history of Muslims and we're getting sick to our stomach. But you see, the difference is that sickness I got in my stomach makes me sanctify myself away from Muslims. But the sickness you have in your stomach, you ignore and go right back into it. And there's the problem. There's the difference between the two of us, okay? And that's the acknowledging of the truth. And the Bible says that we try our best, at least to be patient and not strive against those who oppose ourselves, if God peradventure would give them repentance, the acknowledging of the truth. And that's why, sir, you as a Muslim are not being kicked out of this country. That's why you, sir, as a Muslim, are being tolerated to the point because of the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ he's given to us. And we, in turn, are trying to give you that grace for you to acknowledge the truth, but you won't do it. And there then becomes the problem.
He continued to say, if someone is confused or has a problem with Islam, why not just talk to a Muslim before paying for a billboard? And now that's
I'll tell you why. Take that statement and take it to the Jews. Go take it to Israel right now. And you ask them, say that again? Quote it one more time.
If someone is confused or has a problem with Islam, why not just talk to a Muslim before paying for a billboard?
I know, folks, hey, all you Israelites out there, you Hebrew people, why are you so upset at these Jews who are, or not the Jews, why are you so upset at these Muslims who have, as news reports I've read, have attempted to put bombs into school children's backpacks to blow up Israeli school buses? And, when they have attacked and killed innocent families over and over, why don't you just go talk to them? That's obviously the solution. We should just be talking to them. Folks, whether you know it or not, there's not a whole lot of talking going on, okay?
It's that whole mentality of, oh, let's just get along.
Yeah, get along. But you see, when I did the teaching on Muslim, and that we had an article called Islam, a Religion of Terror, if you go to creationliberty.com, go to the search bar, type in Islam, I-S-L-A-M. In there, I have documented, this is open international news that was on video in an interview, where one of the Muslim priests, okay, this imam they have, went onto television and he says, look, you Americans don't seem to understand. Our Quran tells us to hate you. And no matter how nice they're acting to you, down, in your neighborhood, down the street corner, when they get into those mosques, they secretly hate you because they are commanded by Allah to do so. He flat out said that on international television, and nobody will believe him. I appreciate that man. He's one of the Muslims I appreciate more than any other Muslim because he's honest and he's not a hypocrite. He actually lives the way he says he believes. Now, I wish the rest of the Muslims would do that, and then people would understand why Trump is having this ban on allowing Muslims into the country right now. There's a reason for it.
Technically, that was the end of the article, but at the bottom, they had a video of the report from Fox 59, right? So this video, a Muslim is quoted saying, nobody should be exposed to such disgusting language, no matter who they are about.
Could you, well, no, he's not going to. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I was going to say, define disgusting language. Like, I'm not going to define what I would consider disgusting language because I'm not going to repeat it here. Okay. In fact, I just actually this week, for the sake of our live chat, I went through and I went on Google. I started looking up somebody who would have a list of disgusting language. So I had a block filter, and I added in a bunch of stuff. I was like, whoa, I forgot about that one. Like, I didn't even remember some of the ones. This is like trip back to high school and college. I was like, wow, I forgot about those. Let me put some of those on there. Now that's disgusting language. This guy, basically anything that would reveal the truth about the origins of Islam is disgusting. Just want to clarify his definition there. Please continue.
We urge the person or people responsible for the billboard to come and have a conversation with us instead of hiding behind anonymous.
Please come and have a conversation with us. Please be at this specific address at this specific time and wait there for approximately 10 minutes. Someone may or may not contact you. The next thing we know is news today, man blown up at random address. Nobody knows why. I mean, folks, I'm not saying these things to be cute, okay? For Muslims, a Muslim that may watch this, I'm not saying this to be cute. I'm saying that this is what the Quran teaches. If you go look up the article I was talking about, I didn't just put on a bunch of speculation. I went into the Quran. I used the most popular international Quran that is used by most Muslims today. I went into that. I quoted the scripture in the context verbatim, word for word. Go read it for yourself. I quoted it on all sorts of topics. And you can see where it does, like there's an instance where somebody had made a fake video of Muslims burning a man alive, and these imams got onto the news and they said, well, that's the Quran doesn't teach that in the first place. That's not what Islam is all about. And then I went to the Quran and I showed where it indeed says you should burn them alive. So what they say in the media, and if you actually read the Quran, are way two different things here. So that's where I'm not saying all this to be cute. I mean, this is a more relaxed atmosphere. Like we all get on here. We're here to enjoy ourselves, discuss some issues, and we usually have a pretty good time. I'm not saying this stuff to be cute and to make jokes. I'm saying this is a really serious issue, okay? And people just aren't taking it seriously. And that's because they're believing the lie that these Muslims who are just, oh, well, I got a guy down the street, he's a neighbor of mine, and they seem really friendly. But you don't know what happens behind closed doors.
In our next report, a report from the Conservative Free Press titled 9/11 Message Has Locals Upset Over the North Carolina Billboard. So now we have another billboard in North Carolina. Hey, sometimes the truth isn't pretty to look at. And while we get that not everyone wants to be reminded of 9/11 every day on the way to work, the people who put up...
Assuming, contextually, they're talking about September 11th, 2001. They're not referring to people do not like to be reminded what the emergency service number is.
You are correct. It's
okay. Just making sure. Because I can't see it in front of me, so I got to make sure what the context is.
Yeah. And who put a controversial billboard up supporting President Trump's travel ban in Catawba County, North Carolina, can't be accused of shading the truth. A local North Carolina news station covered the flap last week surrounding a billboard that recently went up on the Interstate 40. The billboard, a version of which was also put up in Tennessee, reads, "Why support President Trump's immigration ban? 19 Muslim immigrants killed 2,977 Americans, September 11th of 2001.
Who wants to start?
That's a bunny trail.
Who wants to start? Because
That's a loaded question.
Because we all have 50 objections to everything that was just said. Who wants to start?
There's just too much there to even even begin.
Even let's say it was true. Let's say it was true. Then, if the FBI report is to be believed, the official FBI report to what happened on that day was to be believed, and that blood, bone, and all manner of engine parts disintegrated instantly, but yet paper like a passport would survive and be found as evidence. Okay, I can, look, I was just listening to someone the other day talk about thermodynamics in something like a car. Like, for example, cops do a drug bust, or not drug bust, but they basically stop a car and they find, a tiny amount of narcotics, whatever it is, illegal inside a car that had been set on fire, right? And then people say, oh, well, there's no way, they had to have planned that couldn't be on fire. Wait a second. Thermodynamics works in different ways. Okay, you'll have a car that will, for example, you could have a leak of gasoline and the fire starts slowly and spreads. You could also have the fire that works its way up into the gas tank and it explodes, and once it explodes, it burns off all the fuel like incredibly fast, which means the fire is actually not going to last very long, and you would have a huge part of the car, yes, would have been burnt, but you'll actually be surprised how much you actually find in the car that's still usable or still good or hasn't really been harmed much at all. So the problem with the planes is that if you have a fire hot enough to disintegrate people like bones, okay, like for example, anybody
like a cremation thing.
I'm not trying to help criminals here, okay, but give me just a moment. If you're going to actually burn evidence, you have got to heat that car up, I mean to hellfire levels of hot, and you need to keep it burning at that rate for a very long time in order to burn all the evidence. Because even if you're going to burn, like let's say it was burning all night long, fire actually went out, you realize you can still get dental records off of dead bodies, right? But yet, and they said, well, jet fuel's special. Are you kidding me? Jet fuel is like 80% kerosene. The kind of stuff that you strip paint off with, that's literally mostly that's all it is. And if you're going to tell me you're going to start a fire hot enough to just instantly burn a jet engine to where it's consumed and disappears, but a passport survives. But I know I'm the one not to be trusted. I know the FBI is extremely trustworthy. I am not. So if what the FBI says was true, the story that they gave, right? They gave their overview, their 9/11 report and the commission's report and everything like that. If we were to believe that that's true, then yes, Donald Trump would be justified to have set that ban. The question we'd have to ask is why Bush didn't do it and Obama didn't do it. There's the real question. Uh-oh, somebody made a boo-boo. So if that's to be, trusted,
that's
right?
Actually a really good point.
So
because if the whole thing was true, wouldn't that be justification?
Yeah, it should have been. You see, I'm not.
But it wasn't even brought into question as a possibility. Even.
Right. Well, I mean, they did do things like random checks and how many Muslims got randomly checked.
Every single one.
Why didn't you just make a decree saying, look, if you're a Muslim and you're dressed like a Muslim or you declare that you are a Muslim on here, you're going to be checked?
Yeah, pretty much. If you're from a Muslim country, you're going to be checked.
And they're like, this is against
into our country.
Well, this is against, my rights. Well, it's against my rights to be blown up randomly somewhere too, right? And so I'm just saying, Christians would be checked on a regular basis if the Lord Jesus Christ taught us that we were supposed to go blow people up and burn people alive and all that. Well, then, yeah, the government would be justified in checking Christians on a regular basis. But that's not the doctrine that's taught. Okay? And that's not what the Lord Jesus Christ taught at all. So anyway, I'm sorry. There's a bunch of stuff we could discuss there. I'll leave it at that.
I think the numbers are powerful enough in themselves. One individual told the local news. So if you look at it and think about something, if you look at it and think something is wrong about it, it makes you wonder about you. Exactly, the billboard. Exactly. The billboard doesn't have images of people burning. It doesn't show ISIS holding up severed head. ISIS holding up the severed head of a captor.
Not that there would anything be factually wrong with any of that, but
yeah, ISIS holding up the severed head of a captor, Leave that to liberals like Kathy Griffin. It merely states a fact that everyone in the U.S. should be reminded of every now and again.
Kathy Griffin, isn't that horrid, totally not funny, feminist, wicked so-called comedian?
Well, isn't she on Good Morning?
Yeah, the one that held up what looked like a severed head of Donald Trump.
Oh,
With
Really?
blood dripping all over it.
oh.
Okay. Is she a Muslim?
No,
You sure?
but she's crying now that Trump ruined her career after this happened.
All right.
Wow.
That's fantastic. Just one less to deal with, right? Yeah, well, Lorraine's asking how. Like, what exactly? Does anybody know?
Is it
Because I don't know anything about
is
this.
her career over because she held up a severed head of Trump? Or like
No,
But I think she
the
said
family
it was
didn't make sense.
because she held up. It's because he destroyed her career. She held up the thing. I think that's what she's saying. But
She held up the severed head. He got upset about it. Said said it traumatized Barron, their son,
Right.
and that the backlash that
Wait,
she
her
received-
son's name is Baron.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that kind of
It's her
contradictory?
career, but it's small.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm sorry. I thought a woman was naming their son Baron. Like that seems kind of contradictory from like Rachel and Leia's standpoint. Anyway.
No, Trump's son is named Barron.
Right. Okay. So, wait, what happened? Okay. Now I don't understand this. What
She made the joke and held up
Kathy
the head
Griffin,
and it traumatized her son.
traumatized
His son.
his son? How old's his son?
He's not
10.
old.
Oh, he's little.
I think he's 10 or 11, something like that.
Yeah, I could see that. That's actually not. That's actually
But
pretty reasonable.
It's not.
You see,
yeah.
If
it's
Donald
not
Trump
old.
did that to Kathy Griffin and she had a small child, not that that's going to happen. She's a feminist, but if she, well, I mean, maybe,
I know.
but if she had a small child, do you know the media circus that would happen over
It'd be
that?
hell. It'd be horrible.
Yeah, he'd get impeached over something
Pretty
like that.
much.
But she's going to get a free pass? I don't think so,
cares?
right? So how did he?
How does this equal
Wait,
her career
hold on,
being
hold on.
over?
She held up the head.
Right.
Yes.
That traumatized children who, that's my dad.
Yeah.
She's doing that too.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump ruined her career. Was it Donald Trump that held up his own head, or did she do it? Because what was the definition of feminism? Did anybody remember?
Are we missing anything? Did we get it all?
Does
Is that the story?
Does anybody remember the definition of feminism I gave in that like 20-hour teaching? I gave it many times. Anybody remember?
Women not taking responsibility for their own actions, blaming somebody else for their problems.
Women is a group of women who refuse to take responsibility for their own choices.
Yep.
She thought she was going to get a bunch of media publicity because I'm sure she's.
Oh, she did.
Well, it's
Negative.
probably. She probably said, "Hey, this is a great way to hook up jumper cables to my career. That is obviously dead. I left the lights on overnight, and my career's dead. And so this is a way to jumpstart it." And she did, but it died again very quickly because, hey, when the battery's old and dead, there's just nothing you can do to get the thing going again.
The station spoke to some who found the message offensive, like resident Oliver Ritzel. I believe in the Christian way, and that's to embrace everybody, Ritzel said. Kind of the hate message behind it. I'm not for that. How is it a hate message? In fact, it's a fact. Are facts hateful? Have we really reached that point? They also spoke to war veteran Andrew Katox, who said, "It sounds like somebody is trying to cause some issues that don't need to be worried about now." Right, because Islamic terrorism is a thing of the past. Thanks for your service, sir, but let's get serious. We find it extremely hard to believe that anyone other than an outright bleeding heart liberal or a Muslim immigrant would have a problem with this billboard, and we imagine the local news went out of their way to try to find Christians and vets who represent the opposing view, who we wonder how many people they spoke to and how
Because there's no way the media could find anybody who is ignorant and uninformed, right? There's nobody out there who speaks on conjecture that's impossible.
There is a pastor here, his name's Paul Cummings, and this guy is totally against the sign. He says that, and I'll quote him, it contradicts the teachings of the Bible. He goes, my opinion is that I think these people need the saving gospel of Jesus Christ. I can believe that, support that. He goes, they need that more than I need to be protected, Cummings told the station. I'm perfectly willing for people who are hostile to us to be in our country because that's what loving your enemy is all about.
And your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that, I don't agree with that. I mean, well, I can love my enemy, but I still want to be protected the same way. I mean, I don't. Okay, if I'm in combat and I capture my enemy, before I capture him, I'm probably going to try to kill him. But once I capture him and he's under my care now, I'm not going to do anything else to harm him. I'm going to love him. I'm going to feed him. I'm going to take care of him.
Yeah, but when you capture him, do you just bring him next to you and let him stand there, or what do you do?
Well, I've done this before. So basically, you capture them. Initially we would zip tie them, put their hands behind their backs. They're blindfolded. We'd bring in an interpreter to talk to them to find out, why they were where they were at, or why they were basically collect intelligence on them. At some point, I would be
Let me make sure I'm getting this straight. You're trying to protect your own safety and then get informed? How unpatriotic of you.
I know, right? So, we would deal with them for a little bit. We'd check their hands for explosives, all that kind of stuff, and we would whisk them away to some internment facility where they would be interrogated by some interrogating officers. But what I'm saying is, I can't agree with this pastor. These people went out and found this guy, and he said, what do you think about this? And of course, they already knew that this guy didn't support this sign, and I think he's twisting the scriptures a little bit. I don't think that supports Christ and what he says and to love your enemies. We're not supposed to. I don't know how to word it, Chris. We're not supposed to be doing that.
I can word it a little better. Okay, Chicago during that marathon, the two guys that did that were Muslim converts.
Yeah.
At least according to the news reports that I'm aware of, they were Muslim converts. Now, when they did all that, was the correct thing for a Christian to do? Okay, everybody's there. The explosions happen. The two guys are like, yeah, we did it. And everybody's running around. Were the Christians to go over those guys and just, put your arm around them and say, hey, buddy, it's okay. Because Jesus. Is that because, look, loving your enemy is that's in a totally different context. It's somebody that hates on you. Because here's the problem. If you look at American, where a prison where you're talking about Steve, you're talking about a soldier, who's in an opposing military. You've captured them. You brought them to an American facility. They are going to be in typically, not always, but sometimes an air-conditioned place with food, with running water and plumbing and all sorts of stuff. Now take an American and put them as a POW in a Muslim facility.
Well, I can tell you, Chris, we would give every single one of those captured Iraqi Taliban Al-Qaeda terrorists a prayer rug and a Quran. And we Americans could not even touch it. Once we touched it, it was now unclean. So we had to take
Wait. You mean that a Muslim prisoner, was given a prayer rug and a Quran?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
We had stacks of them. And so basically the infidel would have to take the prayer rug and then grab the Quran, because we weren't allowed to touch it because we were infidels, and then hand it over to the Muslim so he could practice his faith while he was in internment. So, yes.
Well, guys, can I make sure that everybody's, if you're not speaking, please mute your microphone. There's echoes that are coming back through. Thank you. Continue, sorry.
No, I thought it was ridiculous too, because I knew if I was captured, I would probably either lose my head on video or something bad would happen to me. We wouldn't be treating these guys. And here's, on top of this, Chris, we would give them money because, say, this Muslim guy or this guy who was captured was away from his job. So we would give him like salation payments. We give him money because if we found him he was innocent, then we would pay him however much money it was for him missing his job, and then we go release him back into society.
I got to tell you, I am angry that you guys had to do that. But what has made me more angry is that I had to pay for those Qurans. I had to pay for those prayer rugs. I had to pay for all that stuff for this money he's getting. That comes out of our pockets. That's not just some Quran producing, prayer rug producing, money producing tree that they have growing over there. We pay for that. And that's, I mean, unbelievable that they're going to come over here and whine about a sign that is privately funded when we're paying for all sorts of junk for these people that are trying to kill us.
I agree, and so the same thing. There was a lady in Afghanistan who was handing out gospel tracts in the city of Bagram, and she was an American contractor, and she was, I wouldn't say she was arrested, but she was pulled away from her assignment, whatever she was doing out there. And then there's a big email that went out to everybody saying no more proselytizing, no more sharing your faith with anybody that's not, it's Muslim or anyone who's a native of that country.
The sheer fact that they were allowed to practice their faith in prison is astounding to me.
Well, even then, I mean, I think the point he was trying to connect to, what he just said,
they enable their faith. Really,
the point he was trying to connect to with what he just said was going back to what this pastor was talking about loving the enemy. Now, he's saying, oh, well, they need the gospel. Well, you can't even share it with them in situations like that. And so now we're having to connect these concepts together. Is that how do you get people informed on this stuff? Because even the Muslims, I think a lot of people in Islam, at least as far as I've understood, as far as I've read, they don't even understand where a lot of the origins of their stuff, because again, it's like every cultic religion around the world. Anything that is written outside of the authority of a Muslim, of like the Islamic religion or a Muslim in particular, is considered apostate material. So if it's coming from an apostate, they said, well, that can't be considered as true. It's the same way Jehovah's Witnesses work, same way Mormons work, same way, pick one, right? And so they all do the same thing. And I think that's why a lot of them don't understand what that's happened to. Well, that makes me sick to my stomach. Yeah, it does me too. That's my point. So, I mean, loving the enemy is when you are, I mean, because that's when you guys remember when we went back to the teaching I was doing over what love is in the Bible and how love is to keep the commandments of God. Even God said, if you love me, keep my commandments. That's what loving him is. And if we keep the commandments of God for one another too, then we are loving other people by keeping his commandments just automatically in that. And then he adds in about charity and different things like that and be charitable towards them. But that doesn't mean to allow them to run wild and harm innocent people. Because what about the innocent people they've harmed, Mr. Pastor? What about these innocent people that have been injured? Don't they deserve the gospel too? And when in the Bible has God ever protected the wicked? I have never seen an instance in which God has justified or protected the wicked in any sense. He has helped the repentant person. He's given grace to the humble, but he's resisted the proud and he's resisted the wicked.
Well, Chris, it doesn't really help, like when our senior government officials, and I'm talking about the president, every president we've ever had in the past 25 years, will give and publicly announce that Islam is a religion of peace. And kiss up to the Saudis and kiss up to these people who are promoting this stuff. And so it doesn't really help the cause of anybody that goes overseas, especially the military, when our leadership supports Islam, or at least publicly says that it's a religion of peace, and it doesn't help us out at all.
Yeah, and the soldiers are forced to risk their lives over some of the things we don't even need to be involved in. And that's what Lorraine was even just commenting while you were talking there. She was saying, despite the fact that, they said, well, what about all the oil? We have to have relations with them because the oil over there. No, we don't. Actually, the United States owns the largest oil field in the world in Alaska. Yes. And there's a banned book by William Lindsay. Is that William Lindsay? I think it is. You're right. Yeah. Is a banned book called what? I think I've got over there. I think it might be that bound one.
It is.
Grab me that. I'll get the I'll get the title for you just because in case you want to look it up. This has been banned. It's on the banned
It's
U.S.
very good.
banned list. Okay, if you want to read because
The
if there's
Energy
anything that will
Non-Free.
intrigue you, it's like what book has been so bad that the United States government has banned it. It's called The Energy Non-Crisis by Lindsay Williams. Does I say William Lindsay?
Yeah.
I may have said it backwards.
Close.
It's Lindsay Williams, okay? And he will tell the story, and his eyewitness testimonies apparently have been backed up even by state senators. He has forwards in here. This testimony has been backed up, so it's not like to get it, we had to get a PDF copy and print a book. Uh-oh, we have it. It's illegal to print. It's not illegal to read, okay? So don't misunderstand that. Don't think you're breaking any kind of U.S. law by reading it.
I bet it has a lot to talk about the petrodollar and things like that.
I can't remember all the details because it's been probably
8 years?
10 or more maybe years. I don't know.
No.
You know,
Probably-
Saudi Arabia had olive oil. You think we'd be friends with them? I don't know.
The point is that there's a Alaskan pipeline that stretches clear across the country that just got shut off, and he worked over there with the people that they discovered the largest, biggest oil field. I mean, all the oil fields combined in the Middle East do not match the size of the oil field that's up in Alaska right now, and the whole thing got shut off because if they had flipped that on, all communications with the Middle East, we would have said, "See ya, we don't need you anymore."
Military industrial complex.
Yeah. I mean, they said, "Whoa, wait a second. We have got to keep our
We gotta
businesses
keep our
going,
wars.
and in order to keep the businesses
Money.
going, you have to keep the war going. And if you get out of the Middle East, and then we start paying off all our debt, we're going to have any connections to other countries. And well, you see, what could happen if we open that up? We would be selling oil around the world, and gas prices would come down to about maybe 10 cents a gallon, and then it wouldn't be a problem anymore." And then people say, "Well, we'd be putting on our carbon footprint." Yeah, the carbon that the trees absorb. Are you kidding me? Trees around here would grow like crazy. So I mean, it's amazing that God's got his own built-in filtering system for all that. You think that God, wanted us to start fires, and then he didn't put in a filtering system for all that? Oopsie daisy. I guess it just must be an ignorant God somebody's worshiping, right? No, our God did it right, okay? And the place where we have, there's a pit that we take stuff out and burn it in sometimes, and the trees around that pit are huge. They're some of the tallest trees we have on the property. So I mean, they love that stuff. They said, "Bring more of it, burn more fires. We love this stuff. Here, I'll give you a few branches, burn those, and let us soak up that stuff." So trees are pretty cool like that. Anyway, what was I talking about?
Lindsay Williams.
Something, I don't know how I got on that.
Pipeline.
I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Here, the point of carbon footprint junk, yeah, don't worry about that. In Norway, in places like Norway, they line their highways with trees on purpose because the carbon emissions from all the vehicles, the trees absorb that and they get bigger. They love that stuff. So that's anyway. America is so ignorant on so many issues. The point being, if you want to read that, you can. It's up to you. It's not necessarily. I mean, the guy claims to be a chaplain. I don't know if he's actually a Christian or not. You know how it goes, but. The point is he claims to be one, and he came out to try to tell the truth about this issue. He was in the board meetings when some of the big top names were were in the oil industry were discussing all this, and they allowed him to be in on it because it's the way it works out there. A lot of these oil guys, man, they have rough jobs. I mean, they're 6 months on, 6 months off, which means they live on site for 6 months and they work nonstop. And then they'll get 6 months off, and a lot of them get depressed. There's been suicides, all sorts of stuff, and so they hire chaplains to try to help give them counseling and all that.
Plus, it's in Alaska.
Yeah, in Alaska, I mean, it's not like
Yeah. Here, where we
hey,
have a night and a day.
you want to take a break, just go down to the water park, and
That too.
there's a water park. It's called the Coast. If you want to jump in there, it's your discretion. But anyway, sorry, that's the point on that. We do own the United States own the largest oil reserve in the world, period. And it's enough to supply the entire world. We could pay off the national debt within a few years, no problem. Have oil prices dramatically. We'd have all the money incoming because now, by the way, so I talk about, well, we'd have to have national security. National security in this country is paid for by, this is income taxes from, and I want to emphasize this. Don't think it's from your income taxes, because that income tax that we're talking about from your wages is illegal. That's actually unconstitutional, illegal the way they have done that. It's a whole nother story. But it is the taxes that are paid by corporate profit. That means the big time corporate entities who own like the major corporations, like the Walmarts or the BP gas stations or whatever it is, all these people, they are the ones who have to pay the taxes that provide for our military. So if we had to have more military status to protect all that, it's the very fact that the oil industry itself would be paying for the military to protect our country. And so we could get out of all these countries around the world and just stay home. So, and protect our borders. That's the way it ought to be. But you see, if you open up, if you just, I mean, there's just all sorts of little things. There's conspiracies everywhere. If you open up one of them, it's going to open up the channel to break a lot of these things. So you have to make sure they're all secure. And so the Muslim junk, it really, the bottom line is this. A lot of this debate about these billboards or these signs or somebody having it, a lot of this is distraction. It's all distraction. That's why they call it a controversy, because, oh, it's a controversy. Let's have a debate. Let's have a totally useless debate that doesn't get anybody anywhere. It doesn't change anybody's mind. Everybody goes home thinking the same thing they thought before, and we just wasted a bunch of time. Nobody learned any facts whatsoever, and that's typically why. I mean, it's not that I mean, this is good for discussion. When I say this, I don't want Josh to take offense. This is good for discussion. I'm glad he's brought these up. But this is why I don't do current events. Is because I can't actually get factual teaching done when I'm doing current events. All we have to do is try to unwind this media pretzel that has been wound up so tightly. And that's what I end up spending most of my time doing rather than actually getting to the facts.
I don't think we ever really talked about whether we as a church agree with the posting of these signs. And the reason I say that is, you know, even when we were deployed, we tried our best to not create more terrorists or create more insurgents when you are the minority in another country. It's better to have 3,000 enemy versus 3 million. And so when we put these signs up, are we just throwing gas on the fire? Are we purposely trying to aggravate these people that already hate us?
Well, hold on.
More violence?
Home territory.
Well, hold on. Before we ask that question, we have to define a term. You're saying we. I didn't put that sign up.
Well, okay, other folks. Is this something? I know we didn't do it. So if we're trying to, I mean, to me, it seems like we're creating more of a problem when we start throwing signs like that up on our roads. I'm not saying I disagree with the sign. I think the sign has a lot of truth to it. But when we continue to do things like that, I think we're going to create more hostility in our country with people who already hate us to begin with and have already stated in their word that they want to burn us, strike our necks with blades, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and that's why you don't see me.
Allowed to be in our country.
Well, hold on, Lorraine.
Okay.
That we're staying on topic here. That's why I did not pull out my wallet and spend money to put up a sign. Instead, what I did is I found a free way to go online, code it all out, and write out a very lengthy article and do a bunch of teachings on top of it to give people the facts. So to say is whether we or a church agree with it or not. I mean, agree with what's on the sign, agree with putting it up. No, I mean, you talk about, you want to love your enemy. I mean, or at least love other people. I mean, how many people are suffering and starving and need that money? You know, how people have written me saying that in their country where they're at, they're suffering, they're having a hard time with a lot of stuff. And some of these people are Christians that are saying they're having a hard time. And there's no way I can really help them with where I'm at right now. And so what these people are doing is supposedly some of them are calling themselves Christians. Some of them are not. Okay. They're calling themselves activists. When Jesus Christ was teaching us all the things we ought to be doing for one another, the signage, I mean, how does that help? I mean, and so what they're doing is they're spending money they're wasting their money on things they shouldn't be spending their money on in the first place, because it's not nearly as effective as doing the charitable things and all that kind of stuff, right? So I mean, I don't know if there's like a position as a church on that one. I think that's just like where do you justify that biblically, right? Like the only thing I could justify us as a church to spend money on for a billboard would be to put the 10 Commandments on it. That's about it.
Only to be taken down and replaced with something else, you know, or, I mean, that goes into like, we're here in Oklahoma City where they're forced to take the 10 Commandments down because the Satanists here were going to put up a statue of Baphomet. Right, something like that. Or you'll do okay, there was one I remember, like if you take they were talking about where that was in Indianapolis, that was 465. You take 74 down,
which it's actually south, but they call it east. It runs
Because it's
east.
southeast.
It's southeast, but it mostly just runs north to south. Anyway, if you take it on down, there was one of the exits we get off on. There is a bunch of billboards coming up on this exit, and I remember this is many years ago. I remember, and you may have seen it too. There at nighttime we would get back, and it was one lit up, one lit up, one lit up, one lit up, and the last one was not lit up. I was like, I wonder what's wrong with that one. And then when I went out during the day and saw it, it was an advertisement saying, hey, if you need a King James Bible, call this number, we'll give you one for free. Suddenly, the lights went out on this one. Isn't that miraculous?
And the last paragraph says, truth is, we could use more billboards like this, more reminders of just what we were talking about, because you're not going to get them from the media. The next reminder is going to come in the form of another blazing building. It would be nice if we could take some action before the reminder comes. The end.
Because billboards change people's lives. Billboards change people's minds. Billboards are the biggest swayer of philosophy this world has ever known.
Only if it's about chicken.
You know, they're just as, what?
You gotta eat more
We need
chicken.
more. Let's just buy out every billboard, because that's going to change people's minds. Because, one 2-minute segment on CNN will not undo all that work.
All right, so if there aren't any more comments, then I guess we'll close. So thank you, all you listeners that listened to us today. If you would like to comment or read comments for this video, click the link in the description, which takes you to our forum. You can even make an forum account and have discussions with us throughout the week. Just make sure to introduce yourself on the Introduce Yourself section. We hope you have a wonderful day, and Lord willing, we will see you next week.